cell cycle to learn about various regulatory proteins and their actions on different stages of cell cycle. Then to learn how the checkpoint mechanism ensure the quality control in cell cycle events, and to learn about apoptosis and mechanism of apoptosis. So what is cell cycle? Cell cycle is the cyclic representation of events when the cell is undergoing the division. It is a set of progressive events and there is no chance of retrogression. And this cell cycle, this cell division occurs in the recurrent fashion, one after the other, with the freedom to quit only at one point. So now coming to the types of cells which we find in our body. There are labile cells such as squamous epithelial cells of the skin which continuously divide and regenerate. Then permanent cells such as neurons which are unable to proliferate and leave the cell cycle. Then comes the stable cells such as liver hepatocytes, which have a very low level of replication, but they can regenerate when signaled. So these neurons, they usually remain in the G1 phase, and these squamous epithelial cells, they keep on repeating the word I've used. They are going in the cell division in the recurrent manner, whereas the stable cells like liver hepatocytes, they have a low level of replication, but if we give some signal from outside, they can regenerate. So these are the various phases. So one of these phases is interphase and another is the two phases. Second is the mitosis. Interphase itself is divided in the G1 phase, S phase and G2 phase. It is the longest stage. 90% of the cell life goes in this G1, S and G2 phase. It has 3 checkpoints. This is the longest stage, G1. It covers the 90% of cells life. In G0 phase, there is no cell division. And then in G1 phase, it is known as gap or growth phase 1. You can see from the blue color that this whole spans the interface. Then comes the after G1 phase, when there is cellular contents, growth of cellular contents including amino acid, proteins, and all rest of the cellular components, they get duplicated during G1 phase. Then cells goes to S phase, where the chromosomes, they gets duplicated, and after the S phase, you can see from here the chromosomes, they are getting duplicated in the S phase. So each chromosome now in the S phase has one sister chromatid. So after this, it enters in the G2 phase, where the cell double checks the duplicated chromosome for error and making any need for repair. And a few more proteins are also formed in this G2 phase. Then cell enter in the final mitosis state, where actual cell division happens and one parent cell gets converted into two daughter cells. Then after this, the cell can either enter again back into the G1 phase, or it goes into the G0 phase, where the cell cycle arrests. So here the mitosis, finally, let me show you. The mitosis is finally, you have already read it. It is divided into 4 phases, or you can say into the 2 phases. In the first phase, there is nuclear division. In the second phase, there is cytoplasmic division, which is known as cytokinesis. In the nuclear division, you have prophase, prometaphase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And finally, the cell is divided into the identical cells. So after this, I've shown this only, that mitosis is divided into nuclear division and cytokinesis division in the mitotic phase. Then coming to the number of hours the cell spends in each phase. In G1 phase, it spends 6 to 12 hours, and the cell can enter from G0, that is the resting phase, to the G1 phase only when there is some stimulus. Then from G2 to S, it enters in the S phase, where the chromosome number gets converted to from 2n to 4n, and it spends 6 to 8 hours in S phase. Then coming to G2 phase, where cell spends 3 to 4 hours, and the number of chromosome is again 4n, whereas when it only spends 1 hour in the mitotic phase. So 90% of the cell spends its time in the interphase, and 10% in the mitotic phase. And again, when the cell divides into two daughter nuclei, the DNA number again gets converted back to 2n. So in G0 phase, the cell can quit the cell cycle. It is also known as phase of cell quiescence, and this is also called the phase of cell differentiation. It can be reversible or irreversible. Growth factor stimulation takes the G0 cells to the G1 phase. You have seen here. So only whenever there is stimulus, it can enter back to the G1 phase. So what happens in the G1 phase? Although these are resting phase, but here the cell is metabolic active. So in G1 phase, the newly formed cells, which is coming from the G0 phase, or the daughter nuclei, when they are again entering into the new cell cycle phase, they usually accumulate the energy and prepare themselves for the synthesis of DNA. In this phase, cell carries on its normal metabolic activities. There is I have already told you, there is biosynthesis of amino acid, nucleotide synthesis happens, there is synthesis of cyclic proteins, there is active gene expression, whatever you have read in the molecular biology. So it all happens here. And there is synthesis of, because cell has normal metabolic activities, it is producing energy. So there is synthesis of ATP and GTP, and there is RNA transcription. So this phase may be affected by limiting growth factors, nutrient supply, temperature, and additional inhibiting factors. And DNA in the G1 diploid eukaryotic cell is 2n. Now, after this, the cell enters. If everything goes well, the cell enters in the S phase. It means synthesis phase. Here, there is duplication of DNA. You can see from here, this is one chromosome which is unreplicated. Here, the replication happens, and it has two sister chromatids in the when it gets duplicated. So the DNA in the S phase is tetraploid, that is 4n. So here the centromere also gets doubled. So then coming to the G2 phase, it is the second growth phase or gap phase before the cell enters in the final mitosis phase. It is a period of rapid cell growth and protein synthesis, after which the cell gets ready for the mitosis. And these proteins, they are required during the mitosis. So this is this G2 phase is the phase between S phase and mitotic phase, or it is also known as pre-mitotic gap phase. So mRNA, tRNA, and RNA synthesis occurs in the G2 phase. Now coming to the cell cycle regulation. So how this cell is going from one phase to the other phase. So how this is regulated? So it has a few positive regulators and few negative regulators. In the positive regulators, they are cyclin proteins, which are known as the regulatory proteins for cell cycle. Then there are cyclin dependent kinases, which is the catalytic proteins of the cell cycle. So they work hand in hand with each other. This cyclin and cyclin dependent kinase. So you can understand from the name, the cyclin act on the cyclin dependent kinases. Kinase is nothing but which phosphorylates the various substrates. And then comes the negative regulator, which are RB protein, P53 protein or tumor suppressor protein, and the cyclin dependent kinase inhibitors. So these are the negative regulators. Now cyclins, as the name is very clear, the word cyclin mean which are the proteins which are rising and falling continuously in the various stages of the cell cycle. So they are rising and falling, rising and falling. I will show you the diagram also. So these are the various cyclin. So first there is rise of cyclin D in the G1 phase, and then at the end of G1 phase there is rise of cyclin E. As the cell enter in the S phase, there is rise of cyclin A, and then when the cell enters in the G2 phase, there is a constant rise of cyclin B, and finally the cell, once the cell enters in the mitosis phase, the cyclin B also gets degraded. So you can see the cyclin D is spanning the whole cell cycle, whereas cyclin E comes late in the G1 phase and it falls in the S phase. The cyclin A rises in the late stages of G1 phase. It keeps on constantly rising during the S phase, and at the end of G2 phase, their level starts falling. Whereas in the cyclin B, they starts rising at the start of S phase, keeps on increasing during the G2 phase. They reaches peak at the mitosis phase, and by the end of mitosis, their level, middle of the mitosis, their level falls. So cyclins, they are the proteins which usually continuously rises and falls in the various stages of the cell cycle. And the synthesis of cyclin, it starts during the G1 phase. Their level keep on increasing, different cyclin keep on increasing in the different phases, and finally their concentration keeps on increasing till the metaphase. But in the anaphase, they are degraded by the activity of the anaphase protein complex. So there are various cyclins. I have told you cyclin D, G1 cyclin, then cyclin E, late G1 and S cyclin, then cyclin A, that is G2 cyclin, and then cyclin B, that is mitotic cyclin. So their sequence will be DEAB. DEAB is the working sequence of the cyclins. So now coming the cyclin dependent kinases, because these cyclins, these are the regulatory unit, and this CDKs, they are the catalytic units. So cyclin C binds with CDK3, cyclin D and E binds with 4, 6 and 2, D binds with 4 and 6, E binds with 2, then A and E both binds with 2, then cyclin A, it binds with 2 and 1, then cyclin B, CDK1. So these are various cyclins, and these are the various phases in which the various cyclins and various CDKs come and they regulate the cell cycle. This diagram I have already shown you. Now coming the cyclin dependent kinases, these are basically serine threonine kinases which act as the catalytic protein for cell cycle. So let us see the diagram for CDKs. So and cyclin, this is the diagrammatic representation. This is the regulatory unit which is known as cyclin, and this is the CDK which is the catalytic unit. So once this cyclin binds with the CDKs, the cyclin dependent kinases, they become they derive these phosphates from the ATP. Their protein kinase activity gets activated, but they add two phosphate subunits. But out of this, one is inhibitory phosphate and another is the this activating phosphate. So once this cyclin CDK complex is formed, they are acted by the various protein kinases which add two phosphate from the ATP. But out of these two phosphate, one is the inhibitory phosphate, another is the activating phosphate. So this is inactive cyclin CDK complex. Then comes the role of activating protein phosphatases. Protein phosphatases remove the inhibitory phosphate and keeps on this active phosphate keeps on retaining in this CDK cyclin complex, and this becomes an active CDK cyclin complex. So these CDKs are the serine threonine kinases which act as the catalytic proteins for the cell cycle. CDK concentration remains nearly constant throughout the cell cycle, but they remain inactive and activated upon binding with the cyclins. So once these cyclins, they bind the inactive CDK, they causes the activation of these enzymes. The kinases part gets activated due to, and they causes the transfer of ATP to this serine or threonine residues of the target protein. Once they gets activated, they are partially activated because one phosphate is the inhibitory phosphate. Then comes the role of activating protein phosphatase. This removes the inhibitory phosphate and this becomes a fully active cyclin CDK complex. So here you can see one M cyclin which acts with the CDK1. It becomes a part, this inactive M-CDK complex. Once this complex is formed, CDK activating kinase gets activated. It adds 2 phosphate from the ATP to form a partially active M-CDK. But then the role of this phosphatases come, that is CDC25. It removes one phosphate and then it makes this active M-CDK. So this active M-CDK, it has positive feedback regulation on the phosphatases, and it has also positive feedback control on the CDK inhibitory kinases. Okay, because if this inhibitory kinases they gets activated, it will never come in the partially active form. So this is how I have taken a small piece from the diagram to show you, make it more clear. So once this is CDK, cyclin, and one phosphate, which is activating phosphate, it is an active cyclin complex. If V1 kinase, it acts again on this complex, it will again add inhibitory phosphate, whereas CDC25, it will remove this inhibitory phosphate and will convert it back into, this is partially active CDC cyclin complex, whereas CDC25 again removes the inhibitory phosphate and converts back into the active CDC cyclin complex. So I hope it is clear. So just again a little bit explanation that cyclin proteins binds to the inactive CDK enzyme and causes activation of these enzymes. These kinase activity gets activated, they causes transfer of a phosphate from the ATP on the serine or threonine residues of the target protein, and then this phosphorylation is initially partial because it is adding one inhibitory phosphate. Then comes the role of protein phosphatases, which removes the inhibitory phosphate, and the one phosphate moiety, which is the activating phosphate, will remain on the active cyclin CDK complex, and these further active CDC cyclin complex will further phosphorylates the various target proteins or their substrate. So this is basically the covalent modification of phosphorylation and dephosphorylation. I hope it's now clear with you. So various target proteins for cyclin CDK complexes: E2F, histone proteins, nuclear laminins, and APC proteins. So let us see how the first protein E2F gets targeted by this cyclin CDK complex. So the mechanism of CDK regulation we have seen, it is by phosphorylation and dephosphorylation of CDKs, then controlled synthesis and degradation of cyclins, and third is the specific CDK inhibitory proteins. So we have various, because when cell is undergoing these various phases of the cell cycle, there are various checkpoints also which are called as restriction points. So these are the control mechanism in the eukaryotic cell, which verify whether the processes at each phase of the cell cycle have been accurately completed before it progresses into the next phase. So these are the three checkpoints. G1 checkpoint, which is also known as G1 restriction point, it is at the verge of G1 and S phase. Then comes the G2 checkpoint, which is at the verge of S and G2 phase. Then comes the metaphase checkpoint, which is at the M phase of the cell cycle. So here you can see this is your first checkpoint. When the cell enters from G1 to S phase, it will check at this checkpoint, it will check whether the environment is favorable. So should it move to the S phase? Has all the organelles or the required proteins has been synthesized in the G1 phase? So should it enter in the S phase or should it stop here? If it is needed to be stopped here, it will stop here. Then once the cell is going from G2 to this is the second checkpoint. It is actually should be here. That some says it is at the border of S and G2 phase, some says it is the G2 checkpoint. So at this second checkpoint, that is G2 checkpoint, it will check whether all the DNA it is replicated properly, or if there is any damage, is if the damage is there, has the damage been repaired. So you have read about all the replication repair in the DNA replication, and you have just summarized that in your exams also. So once the cell will check that whether it's all well here, it is completely replicated, all the repair has been happened, it will enter in the M phase. And then in the M phase, there is the third checkpoint where it will see whether all the chromosomes are properly attached to the mitotic spindle, and if it is not, so whether any repair is needed or not. After that only it will undergo the complete process of this cytokinesis. Okay. Now coming to the G1 checkpoint, let us discuss each checkpoint in detail now. This checkpoint is present at the end of G1 phase and before it enters the S phase. It helps in taking the decision of whether the cell should actually divide, or it should delay the division, or it should enter in the G0 phase or in the resting phase. So how it will decide? It will get the signal from the extracellular growth factors, which are actually transducers in a typical manner. Growth factors bind to the receptors on the cell cycle. Once these growth factors, they bind with these extracellular receptors on the cell, it will start synthesizing the cyclin D. And once the cyclin D accumulates, it will activate the cyclin 4, this CDK4 and CDK6. And once it binds the CDK4 and CDK6, there is phosphorylation of this RB protein. This is known as retinoblastoma protein. Why it is known as retinoblastoma? Because it is first found in the patient having cancer retinoblastoma. So once this protein retinoblastoma gets phosphorylated by binding of activated cyclin D CDK4 CDK6 complex, it gets phosphorylated. Once it gets phosphorylated, it reduces its binding to E2F protein. E2F is another family of transcription factor. You have now read about gene regulation also. There are lots of transcription factor, and E2F is one of the family member of this transcription factor. So usually unphosphorylated RB, let me show you the diagram. So this is RB protein, it binds with the E2F. E2F is the transcription factor. So when the RB protein it's in the unphosphorylated form binds with the E2F. Once it is bind with the E2F, it will never allow the transcription of this particular gene. So unphosphorylated RB binds to the transcription factor E2F. E2F cannot bind the DNA and transcription is blocked. So once this cyclin D, okay, this cyclin D it binds with the CDK. There is phosphorylation of the target protein, that is your here the target protein is your retinoblastoma protein. It will phosphorylate it. Once it will completely phosphorylate it, it gets removed from the E2F protein. It will free the E2F protein, and E2F protein will, being a transcription factor, bind to a particular sequence on the DNA, and once it binds, the transcription starts, and there is further synthesis of various cyclins in the cell, and the cell will enter in the next phase of the cell cycle. So cell growth triggers the phosphorylation of the RB protein. First, there are growth factors. Growth factors causes the rise of cyclin D. Cyclin D binds with the CDK4 and CDK6, causing the partial and later on the full phosphorylation of RB protein. Once RB protein gets completely phosphorylated, it releases E2F, and as soon as E2F releases, it starts transcription, and this binds the DNA and turns on the gene expression, thus advancing to the cell cycle. So cyclin E and cyclin A, they start synthesizing now. So this restriction point is controlled also by the action of one inhibitor, that is P16 inhibitor, that is CDK inhibitor P16. The inhibited CDK will not bind with the cyclin D1, and there is no cell progression. So further, once the cell enters in the S phase, the cyclin CDK and mitotic cyclin CDK complexes maintain RB protein in the phosphorylated state throughout the S, G2 and early M phases, and the cell will keep on moving from one phase to the another phase. So after the cell completes anaphase and enters the early G1 or G0 phase, there is further fall in the cyclin CDK levels, leading, I have shown you by the diagram also, if you remember this diagram. So you can see here the cyclin D levels falls at the end of the mitosis. So once this cyclin D levels falls, the cyclin D CDK activation also will stop, and then thus this RB protein gets unphosphorylated, okay, leading to dephosphorylation of RB protein by the unopposed phosphatases. As a consequence, the hypophosphorylated RB is available to inhibit the E2F activity during early G1 of the next cycle or in the G0 arrested cycle. I hope it is clear. First, regulation starts with the RB protein. RB protein in the unphosphorylated phase binds with the E2F protein, which is a family of transcription factor. Once it binds with E2F, it will not allow E2F for the transcription. But once it gets phosphorylated by activated cyclin D, CDK4 and 6 complex, it releases E2F and helps in the further gene expression, leading to the cell towards the advancing the cell cycle. And once it reaches the end of the cell cycle, the cyclin D CDK levels, they fall, leading to the dephosphorylation of retinoblastoma protein by unopposed phosphatases. As a consequence, it inhibits the E2F activity and will arrest the cell in the G0 phase. Now coming to the G2 checkpoint, it is the restriction point which is located at the end of G2 phase. Please don't go whether it is actually at the between S and G2 or at the end of G2 phase. Just remember there are two checkpoints, one in the G1 phase, another comes in the G2 phase. So this checks the number of factors which are essential for the cell division. I have told you in the final phase, cyclin B is the active mainly cyclin which is produced, which reaches at its peak. Then it binds with the CDK1 and it is known as maturation promoting factor or mitosis promoting factor or M phase promoting factor. This protein promotes G2 phase into the entrance of the M phase. So MPF is activated form of cyclin B and CDK1. This protein promotes G2 phase into the entrance of M phase. Once this MPF is activated at the end of G2 by phosphatases, I've told you you need for full activation, you need one phosphatase which removes an inhibitory phosphate group added earlier. Okay. So the main function of maturation promoting factor is this restriction point are triggers for the formation of mitotic spindles, promote chromosome condensation, and causes nuclear envelope breakdown. So these are the main function of MPF. By doing phosphorylation, it triggers the formation of mitotic spindle proteins. It leads to the promotion of chromosome condensation and causes the nuclear envelope to break down. So if there are any damages are noticed in this restriction point, then the phosphatases does not activate the MPF, resulting in the cell arrest in G2 phase till the repair of damaged DNA and prevents the transfer of defected DNA into the daughter cell. Let me show you one diagram. I think I have removed, actually my original PPTs were stuck in my lap computer and there is no signal there. I have used one diagram. Yeah, this diagram I have moved it down here, so you can see here. Yes, this is your G1 phase checkpoint. So you can see various cyclins. Here cyclin D, cyclin binds with CDK4 and 6. These are the inhibitors at this point. Cyclin D, CDK, if they are activated, inactivated form, they phosphorylate RB protein and takes the cell into the S phase. In the S phase, this cyclin E and later on cyclin A binds with CDK2. These are the inhibitors P53, P21, which actually help in the repair, arrest the cell, whereas CDC25, this is the phosphatase which help in the phosphorylation of this complex, keeps it in active form and takes it in the another phase. In the S phase, you can see this cyclin A and CDK. These are the various checkpoints where P53, P21, and these checkpoints arrest the cell if it finds any DNA damage. And these are the CDC25A, which is the phosphatase, which removes the inactive phosphate, takes the cell, keeps this complex in the active form, takes the cell into the G2 phase, and in the G2 phase, the G2 checkpoint comes when it enters in the M phase entry, which is, I've told you, that is the mitotic maturation promoting factor, that is CDC, this is cyclin B and CDK1. Okay, and these are again the P53 and P21. These are the inhibitors of this activated cyclin B CDK1 complex, and this CDC25, this is the activator of this cyclin CDK complex. And once this is active, it will take the cell in the another phase, where in the M phase, and in the M phase it will check at the anaphase whether it will there is any problem with the mitotic spindle formation or there is some problem with the nuclear envelope break. So if it is there, it will arrest it, that is known as mitotic restriction point. And if there is no problem, it will complete the cytokinesis and will take the cell in the another cell cycle. But if there are no growth factors, then cell will leave the cell cycle and will enter the G0 phase. Okay, so we were here. I was discussing about the main functions of MPF. It triggers the formation of mitotic spindle, promote chromosomal condensation, and causes nuclear envelope. And once this MPF there are no damage noticed in this restriction point, the MPF will be active. It will not be inactivated by phosphatase, will go to the M phase, and the metaphase checkpoint occurs in the mitotic phase. At the metaphase part, there is formation of anaphase promoting complex, which regulates this checkpoint. This is also called as spindle checkpoint. This checks whether all chromosomes are properly attached to the spindles or not, and this also governs the alignment of chromosome and integrity of spindles. If there are mistakes, then it will delay the cells into entering into the metaphase from anaphase. So I hope you must have understood the basic concept that there are various cyclins which rises and falls cyclically in the various phases of the cell cycle, and they bind with the CDK, that is cyclin dependent kinases. Cyclin D binds with the CDK1, CDK4, CDK6. Then comes the cyclin E. Meanwhile, there is formation of cyclin E, which forms CDK2. Then meanwhile, cyclin A starts rising. It also binds with the CDK2, and then in the later phases, cyclin B starts synthesizing, and once it reaches its peak, it binds with the CDK1, and the whole cell cycle is governed by the phosphorylation and dephosphorylation by these cyclin CDK complexes of the various proteins, which further lead to the expression of various proteins, which helps in transiting the cell from one phase to the another phase. So this is the whole story behind the cyclins and CDK complex. Now coming to and various restriction points. The G1 restriction point, there is RB protein, which is phosphorylated by cyclin D CDK4 or cyclin D CDK6 complex. In the complete phosphorylation, it relieves E2F protein, which is a family of transcription factor. Once this E2F gets relieved, it starts transcribing cyclin E. Once the cyclin E starts synthesizing, the further phosphorylation phase starts, and it goes to the S phase to G2 phase. In the G2 phase, cyclin B CDK1, once it is in the active form, it goes to the M phase, mitotic phase. In the mitotic phase, there is formation of anaphase promoting complex, which is also known as spindle checkpoint, and it checks whether all the spindle alignment, integrity, alignment of chromosome, attachment of all chromosome to the spindle, and the integrity of all spindle is fine. If everything is fine, it will allow to enter in the cytokinesis phase. So now coming to the so that slide has gone, which I have corrected for P53, but I will later on share with you. P53 is also known as tumor suppressor gene. It is active in this known as guardian of genome also. The capital P53 shows the protein, whereas the this small p53 is showing the protein, whereas the capital P53 shows the gene form. So in a normal cell, P53 is inactivated by its negative regulator, that is MDM2. So P53, it is a 53 kilodalton protein, which is known as the guardian of genome, and the gene is shown by the capital P53. Okay, so how it acts? P53 is usually bind with its negative regulator, that is MDM2. Once this P53 MDM2 complex is there, it is a very short-lived unit, and in the normal cell, it is usually inactivated by the MDM2. But if there is any cell damage, this usually it is deactivated by the ubiquitin. this MDM2 and very short half-life. But whenever there is some cell damage, this P53, it gets phosphorylated. Whenever there is damaged DNA, it activates the various protein kinases. Okay, that is the then once these protein kinases they are activated, they gets this P53 gets phosphorylated. In the phosphorylated form, it gets detached from MDM2. But if there is no damage, then the P53 MDM2 complex, it has a very short half-life. It gets degraded by the ubiquitin system, which you have read in the protein metabolism also. When the, I think Dr. Smita must have covered in protein amino acid pool. So but if there is any DNA damage, it activates ATM and there is activation of phosphorylation of P53. Once this P53 gets phosphorylated, it gets detached from MDM2. Once it gets detached from MDM2, it activates the transcription of this P21, which is an inhibitor protein. It inhibits CDK cyclin complex and doesn't help in the phosphorylation of RB protein. Because I have told you, regulation happens at the three parts. Once the continuous rise and fall of the cyclins, then the regulation by these inhibitors and the various phosphatases which are present, which removes the inhibitory phosphate unit. So once this P53 gets phosphorylated, it detaches from MDM2 and it starts the transcription of the inhibitory cyclin dependent kinases, that is P21, and it arrests the cell cycle. Because this P21, it binds with various proteins. First it binds with the CDK cyclin complex, doesn't allow the phosphorylation of the RB protein and helps in the cell cycle arrest. And second mechanism, it causes the cell, leads the cell for the apoptosis. So here you can see here, P53 causes cell cycle arrest. It helps gives the direction to the cell that yes, there is DNA repair is required. The DNA repair is being done at the cell cycle arrest. You have read the various mechanism of cells DNA repair in DNA replication and repair. Once the DNA repair completes, the cell cycle will restart, or if the damage is beyond repair, the cell will go in the apoptosis phase. There is death and elimination of the damaged cells, leading to the cellular and genetic stability. So here, this is only what I have written. The DNA damage or other stresses, various pathways will lead to the dissociation of P53 and MDM2 complex. Once activated, P53 will induce a cell cycle arrest to allow repair and survival of cell, or if repair is not done completely, it will discard the cell by the process of apoptosis. One of these mechanism is by the activation or by the synthesis of P21 protein, which binds with the G1S CDKs, that is RB protein, and S CDKs and inhibits their activity, thereby helping. I have shown you in that diagram also. Yes, in this diagram. So you can see the role of P21, that is cyclin inhibitory protein at various phases. So P21 is coming at every step. So you can see how P53 starts transcribing P21. P21 blocks this complex and further blocks the phosphorylation which this complex causes. Okay, I hope it is clear to you now. So here we can again see, and by another diagram, this is how the DNA damage, just repeating various slide by various diagrams so that you can be able to understand the different terminologies and the part which you find difficult and you were not be able to understand in the previous slide. So whenever there is DNA damage, P53 gets activated, it binds to, gets phosphorylated, bind to DNA. There is transcription upregulation of target proteins like P21, DNA repair genes, GAD45 and MAX protein. So this P21, that is CDK inhibitor protein, it causes cell in the G1 arrest, and later on there is successful repair, cell further enter in the normal cell division, whereas this GDD45 and Bax protein, they are synthesized once the repair fails, and cell Bax protein and this GAD45, they lead cell towards the apoptosis. And when there is this P53 gene, they are not activated, there is no DNA repair, cell gets no cell cycle arrest, cell keeps on dividing, that is mutant cell keeps on dividing, and it leads to malignant tumors. So P53 mutation leads to various cancers also. Okay, so here you can see there are various gatekeepers and caretakers of the cell. So retinoblastoma determines if the cell is ready to divide. So these give signal to the cell either to stop or to go ahead or to die. So P53 and BRCA1, they detect DNA damage and mutation and lead either go for repair, or if the repair is not possible, lead to death. And if there is mutation in P53 and BRCA1, various sarcomas are related with P53 mutations, whereas BRCA1 you must have read in the, or you will read in pathology in next year, that BRCA1 is related with the breast cancer. So if they are mutant in nature, they will lead to defective formation of P53, and cell will not stop in the for repair, and the mutant cell will keep on growing, leading to the malignant cells. Whereas this retinoblastoma, it is known as caretaker. Okay, and it determines whether cell is ready for the division or not, whereas P53 and BRCA1, they are known as the gatekeepers. So what is the difference between gatekeepers? Gatekeepers inhibit the proliferation or promote the death of the cells with damaged DNA, whereas gatekeeper genes, they maintain the integrity of the genome by repairing the DNA damage. So this is the whole overview of the checkpoints in various phases of the cell cycle. Okay, these pink are the inhibitions, and these black one are the complexes, because this CDC25, this is phosphatases which activates this CDK cyclin complex in the fully phosphorylated form. So it is shown in the black form only. So here you can see this MDM. No, here they have shown something else. I don't want to go in detail of this APC complex formation. This is at the for the PG level. Now coming to apoptosis. Apoptosis is nothing but it is the programmed cell death, and is carefully coordinated complex collapse of cell, protein degradation, and DNA fragmentation, followed by the rapid engulfment of the remaining or the corpuscles by the neighboring cell. So it is a programmed cell death where the whole cell gets collapsed in a coordinated fashion. First, there is protein degradation, then DNA fragmentation, and then finally final engulfment of the corpus by the neighboring cells. So here you can see this is the normal cell. First the cell shrinks, chromatin condenses, the membrane starts blebbing, the organelle is disintegrate, the nucleus and organelle is collapse, membrane further continues to bleb, and there is apoptotic body formation. These apoptotic bodies, they are engulfed by the macrophages, and finally there is no inflammation. So when the apoptosis is physiological also and pathological also, it is physiological when it is needed for proper development, like restoration of tadpole tail, formation of fingers and toes of fetuses, slowing of the inner lining of uterus, and formation of proper connection between neurons in brain. So these are the physiological process where apoptosis is needed, whereas it is when it is pathological, those cells to let those cells die which are infected with viruses, cells of immune systems, and cells with DNA damages. Okay, so what makes a cell decide to commit suicide? There are positive signals. If we withdraw the positive signals, or we receive, the cell receive the negative signals. What are the withdrawal of the positive signals? Like growth factors for neurons or interleukins, if they are withdrawn. But means when the cell itself decides how, when to commit the suicide, mean when to undergo the apoptosis. So it happens in the two forms: when there is withdrawal of positive signals, or there is receipt of negative signals. Withdrawal of positive signal means that you are withdrawing the growth factors, where interleukins, various interleukins. Whereas when the cell starts receiving negative signals, like if the repair is beyond the damage, or there is increased oxidant injury, and the damaged DNA also starts producing oxidants. So increased levels of oxidants, there are activation of death activators like tumor necrosis factor alpha, lymphotoxin, TNF beta, and Fas ligands. So there are two pathways by which the cell undergo apoptosis. One is extrinsic pathway, another is intrinsic pathway. In extrinsic pathway, the death ligands means the negative signals, they bind with the death receptors. There is initiation of caspases 8. It leads to there are two types of caspases in our body which leads to the cell apoptosis. One is initiator caspases, that is caspase 8. The another initiator caspase is caspase 9, and there is final effector caspase, that is caspase 3, which leads to cell death. I will tell you about caspases. And then there is intrinsic pathway, there is DNA damage and P53 leading to the back or BCL proteins, which causes pores in the mitochondria, leading to the escape of cytochrome C, the formation of apoptotic complex, which activates initiator caspases 9, and finally affecting causes the activation of promoter, this pro-caspase 3 to caspase 3, leading to cell death. So these are caspases. These are the major executioners in apoptosis. They stands for cas means cysteine, as C means cysteine, S means aspartate, specific proteins. So they have characteristic of high specificity for substrate containing aspartate, and use a cysteine for catalyzing the peptide bond cleavage. So the protein, this is how the protein gets cleaved. They are synthesized in the cell as precursor in the pro-caspases form. So what is their role in the apoptosis? It cuts the contact of the cell from the surrounding, reorganizes cytoskeleton, shut down the DNA replication and repair, interrupt splice, destroy DNA, disrupt nuclear structure, induce cell to display signals marking it for phagocytosis, and disintegrate cells into the apoptotic body. So I've told you there are two types of caspases: initiator, caspases 9 and 8. And 8 comes in the extrinsic pathway, 9 comes in the extrinsic pathway. Then there are effector caspases, which are caspase 3, which finally cleave the target protein, resulting in the morphological and biochemical markers of apoptosis. So here, this is the extrinsic pathway. Here you can see this is TNF alpha. It is the negative signal which is coming, binding with TNF receptor. It has one death domain. Similar to TNF alpha, we have Fas domain also. It binds, it attracts FAD and DRAD proteins, activates pro-caspase 8, leading to converting into caspase 8. Then caspase 8, it leads to activation of pro-caspase 3, and activation of caspase 3. Pro-caspase gets converted to caspase 3 and leading to apoptosis. So this is your extrinsic pathway of apoptosis. Dr. S.K. Gupta's book has mentioned very nicely about this apoptosis. Okay, and you can use my slides for this cell cycle regulation. You can go through Sir's book also, but you can go through my slides also. So intrinsic pathway of apoptosis, there is severe DNA damage, there is activation of pro-apoptotic factor like BAX, and there is inhibition of anti-apoptotic factors. This BAX protein, they causes pores in the mitochondria leading to release of cytochrome C. Once this cytochrome C gets released, there is they unite with the APAF1 factor to form a apoptosome, which leads to activation of procaspase 9. Once this procaspase 9 they gets activated, they further lead to activation of procaspase 3. And once this procaspase 3 gets converted to caspase 3, this is the effector caspase leading to the apoptosis. So one more slide, two more slides. So there is trigger, then there are regulators, then there is executioner. Triggers are DNA damage, cytokine starvation, hypoxia, this detachment, temperature, death receptor. Regulators are death domain factors, P53, BCL2 family proteins, MYC oncogenes, cytokine responsive kinases, and cytochrome C. And executioner are caspases and APAF1. So what is the difference between the physiological cell death and necrosis? That is pathological cell death. It is the functional form of cell death, where this is the accidental form of cell death. It occurs under the physiological condition. Necrosis is always seen in the pathological condition. Apoptosis is an energy dependent process, whereas necrosis is not energy dependent process. In apoptosis, cell shrinks and pulls away from its neighbors, whereas in necrosis, there is cell swelling happens. Here in apoptosis, the nucleus ruptures, whereas in apoptosis, the nucleus ruptures, whereas in necrosis, the cell ballooning happens and later on rupture happens. And the apoptosis is because induced by the physiological stimuli like lack of growth factor, changes in the hormonal environment, DNA damage, and there is no inflammation following apoptosis, whereas this is induced by the non-physiological disturbances like lytic viruses, hypothermic hypoxic ischemia, metabolic poisons, means extreme condition of these apoptotic conditions. And necrosis is always followed by inflammation, and there is, you will see, there is pus formation which can be removed surgically only. So this is necrosis, this is apoptosis, this is normal cell. There is cell shrinkage, withdrawal from the surrounding, there is cell blabbing leading to phagocytosis of apoptotic bodies, whereas here the cell gets swollen up, the compromised membrane, once this gets swollen up, it gets lysed, and there is release of intracellular product. The factors here are physical trauma in necrosis, complement mediated lysis, and lytic viral infection, whereas it is in apoptosis, it is development, tissue hemostasis, and cell mediated immunity and hormone mediated atrophy. I hope the lecture must be clear to you, and if not, the next lecture, Dr. Rashmi might be waiting for me to finish the lecture. You can come to me by any means. You can approach me on WhatsApp, or you can contact me physically. And if you have any doubt, please let me know. I will be happy to share your doubts and make you things clear. Thank you so much.